Translation, my dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing. In the form of time, he is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything. Nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father, and they are killed through the agency of death. But he is perpetually free of birth and death. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The supreme authority and inconceivable power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be minutely studied from this verse. He is always unlimited. That means that he has no creation or end. He is, however, death in the form of time. As described in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am death. I take away everything at the end of life. Eternal time is also without beginning, but it is the creator of all creatures. The example is given of touchstone, which creates many valuable stones and jewels, but does not decrease in power. Similarly, creation occurs many times. Creation occurs many times. Everything is maintained, and after a time, everything is annihilated. But the original creator, the Supreme Lord, remains untouched and undiminished in power. The secondary creation is made by Brahma, but Brahma is created by the Supreme Godhead. Lord Shiva annihilates the whole creation, but at the end, he is also annihilated by Vishnu. Lord Vishnu remains. In the Vedic hymns, it is stated that in the beginning, there is only Vishnu, and that he alone remains at the end. An example can help us to understand the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. In the recent history of warfare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead created a Hitler, and before that a Napoleon Bonaparte, and they each killed many living entities in war. But in the end, Bonaparte and Hitler were also killed. People are still very much interested in writing and reading books about Hitler and Bonaparte and how they killed so many people in war. Year after year, many books are published for public reading regarding Hitler's killing thousands of Jews in confinement. But no one is researching who killed Hitler and who created such a gigantic killer of human beings. The devotees of the Lord are not much interested in the study of the flickering history of the world. They are interested only in He who is the original creator, maintainer, and annihilator. That is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Well, there we go.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. They're very interested in what they did and how destructive they were, but as if they're eternal or something, But they had a beginning and an end, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hitler was defeated. So who defeated him?
Yeah, right.
He killed his enemies that were trying to kill him, but he was defeated. So who was that?
They're only interested in the temporary activities of that person.
Yeah.
What good did it do? It didn't do him any good.
Yeah, the defeaters are always defeated by death. Yeah.
Because they're temporary.
Yeah. Krishna killed them.
Yeah. Krishna Rakike.
Text 20. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature of eternal time, is present in the material world and is neutral towards everyone. No one is his ally, no one is his enemy. Within jurisdiction of the time element, everyone enjoys or suffers the result of his own karma or fruit of activities. As when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air. So, according to one's particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of all causes, he's not responsible for anyone's material sufferings or enjoyment. there is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. The less intelligent accuse the Supreme Lord of being partial and claim that this is why one enjoys in the material world and another suffers. But this verse specifically says there is no such partiality on the part of the Supreme Lord. Living entities, however, are never independent. As soon as they declare their independence of the Supreme Controller, they are immediately put into this material world to try their luck freely, as far as possible. When the material world is created for such misguided living entities, they create their own karma, fruit of activities, and take advantage of the time element, and thereby they create their own fortune or misfortune. Everyone is created, everyone is maintained, everyone is ultimately killed. As far as these three things are concerned, the Lord is equal to everyone. It is according to one's karma that one suffers and enjoys. The living entity's higher or lower position, his suffering and enjoying are due to his own karma. The exact word used in this connection is anisa, which means dependent on their own karma.
Never heard that.
The example is given that the government gives everyone the facilities for governmental action and management. But, by one's own choice, one creates a situation which obliges him to exist under different types of consciousness. The example given in this verse is that when the wind blows, particles of dust float in the air. Gradually, lightning occurs, and then torrents of rain follow, and thus the rainy season creates a situation of varieties in the forest. God is very kind. He gives everyone an equal chance, but by the resultant actions of one's own karma, one suffers or enjoys this material world. Yeah, everybody's in conflict, you know. It's this one's fault, it's that one's fault, blah, 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 blah. No.
I can't remember who it was, but I was just speaking with somebody had said, oh, they don't believe in God because they blame him for, their father dying young or the mother or whatever. Right away, it's God's fault. And I remember my uncle on my mom's side, my mom, he said he didn't believe in God because his father was such a good man. And if there was a God, he wouldn't have taken him. And I was a child when he said it, so I didn't have an answer for him.
Yeah,
but
the other thing is, why worship a God who's mean like that?
Yeah. But this is a good verse.
Yeah, we're born in ignorance, so like when our parents tell us don't run in the street, and I run in the street, you get hit by a car. So, Krishna gives the, laws of nature.
Yeah.
It's our risk, at our risk,
Mm-hmm.
Someone tells us something, we're in ignorance. I don't believe that.
Yeah. So
Don't
many
put your
times.
hand in the fire. Don't put your hand in the fire. It burns. I told you, don't put your hand in the fire.
Yeah. But that is the thing with, especially youth. You're so disobedient. You must try for yourself. You won't take, advice, wisdom coming down from somebody who might have lived through that before again and again, but,
And then plus, we're warned that the whole world's full of dangers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we had this kid at work. She was so anxious to get her driver's license. She's like, I had a driver's license. So then, she's got a driver's license like 1 month, and she gets in a car wreck. Now she's saying, I wish I didn't have to drive.
Did she say that
Yeah.
today?
I mean, a really bad accident. So
Yeah, I guess they pretty much totaled her mother's car.
so hankering and lamenting.
Yeah, but it's funny because the big guy, Corky, he said to me, because I always say about danger at every step. And so he was quoting that. And I said, yes.
So
Get them to.
he is
I
hearing.
know.
On one level, this man who's so difficult that he's hearing.
Yeah. But too.
And when he recognizes the truth of what he's heard, it's like he's hearing it. Maybe he doesn't accept everything, but then he sees something, and then, oh yeah, that was the truth. It like because of his personal experience. So there's something happening, by hearing.
Yeah.
By hearing.
I always think Prabhupada, they were surfers, they were sufferers. And with driving, he always says, riding on danger. And I have to admit, I have been back here almost 11 years, but I never, in New York, I wasn't in cars very often. He had his vehicle, but I wasn't in it so often. But, you're either in the subway, whatever, you're walking. And here, it's really the way to be. I mean, also by you. You get in your car and you go somewhere to the road, whatever. And I always constantly think what Prabhupada said, riding on danger, because you don't know. Like this girl, somebody, do you know that expression T-boned? I had to ask the guy. He said she was T-boned, which meant she was going down the road. The woman had a stop sign but went through it and just went straight into the middle of her car. So it becomes like a T-bone. Yeah, a T. So of course we realized, it was timing a minute later, a minute before. But hey, destiny, karma, whatever plays out.
Well, I remember in New York City, they keep trying to, in New York City, lower the speed limit on the roads, the city roads, to 25, and they're 35, And they show that if you get hit at 35, if you're walking across the street, you're just a pile of, bones and, you're just all broken up. But if you hit at 25, it's not so bad, So
that's what
it's like Prabhupada's giving an example of riding on danger, because every time you get in a car, there's no, you don't have much of a tolerance for a mistake. You make one little tiny mistake and it's catastrophic because you're going so fast all the time.
And it's not even you; it's the other person.
Yeah,
they're texting or they're on the phone or something, and whoops, T-bone.
Yep.
I was given this woman almost. I was in the car and, we were at the stop sign, but people have this horrible habit where they've got their phone with them constantly. And I'm thinking to myself, that's her and every other person practically. And it's just like, it just increases your anxiety of being in that car with somebody who isn't being attentive. But, it's just...
Yeah, if you're not attentive at the time of death, chanting Hare Krishna, you'll go to the womb. Instead of back to Godhead.
The Kali Yuga people in general are just inattentive anyway. Like, their attention span is like less than a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be really prepared to chant Hare Krishna when you drive.
Yeah.
In this verse, in purport, there was something about, where did it go? Oh, no, it was you, Vani, when you were commenting about how the young people especially are so headstrong and they want to be independent. Prabhupada mentioned something about we're never independent in the purport. And then you took it and said, and they want to be independent. And I was remembering, not just right now, but over the last few days, I was remembering this topic had come up and something I was looking at. And the difference between individual and independent. It's possible to be an individual and still be dependent. And I don't think people realize that. I think it's something like, in order to be an individual, I have to be independent. No.
Well, in America, it's like everybody's, independent. You can be whoever you want to be, have your own apartment, and
But that's a
you're the king of your
fallacy.
castle. And,
They project that.
there's no structure like Varnashram or even the four orders. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudras.
Well, it's like when Prabhupada explained about the woman's situation, clarified it so well, because when he came to the West, there was this, women's lib and all that business. But he said, like if you get pregnant and you're not with the man, and then you have to be, you think you're independent, but then you have to depend on the state to take care of you and the child. So there's this false sense. And, they just put these things out. It's like I don't want to get into it much, but just with the different, transgender, all this, and how they're putting it out to the young people and messing with their little heads, confusing them. It's just everything is so demoniac. I mean, it was demoniac when we were growing up, and it continues to get worse. Just really Kali Yuga.
I'll tell you how demoniac it is. Someone called today the shop, and the person's a school board director, and he was at a party, and the person talking to him didn't know he was a superintendent of schools in this city, and the person was telling him how they're going to petition, the parents in that school district are going to petition the school to put kitty litter boxes in the bathrooms of the schools. And why would you have kitty litter boxes in the schools? Because there's some students that want to identify as furries, like cats.
What?
And the superintendent said, "Over my dead body, will that ever happen?" And the woman didn't know he was a superintendent, and she was all embarrassed.
Did he know about furries?
No, but the kids that work at our shop do. Because my boss, I thought it was a joke. She goes, "No, there's children that are some of them come to school with like a dog's tail hanging out of their dress."
Oh my gosh!
I mean, this is real.
This is like a nightmare.
So,
I think we better get on to Bhagavad.
No, it's just Kali Yuga.
Yeah,
but Lord Chaitanya has come, and as bad as it goes on this side, it's going to get better on this side, and eventually that side's going to be nulled out, Yeah. When you were speaking, Brahma, you mentioned something about there's no authority. People don't accept. You were saying something about authority? Oh, everybody has his own castle. Everyone's independent. And it's understandable why people mistrust authority. It's understandable because there's no qualified authorities.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
more and more.
But you have to take responsibility either way, because you remember Prabhupada criticized the war protesters. He said you should go. No, that's your law. This is your process of government.
And you voted.
And nobody, even Prabhupada's disciples, nobody expected that one. But yes, this is your process. You have to abide by it.
Or if he said about voting in, the president, You voted him in, well, then you have to follow.
Well, I didn't vote for him. No, this is the process of your country. So of course, it led into like surrender to Krishna and you're all protected.
Yeah, and if you don't like the process, take up Krishna consciousness and it'll change the process.
Yeah. Krishna consciousness is truly the cure and the answer to all our problems. Every time I listen to a lecture, it's always like, like in the end, not that we could ever live happily ever after, but Srila Prabhupada, gives you the solutions to the miseries in this world. And yes, we are in Kali Yuga, but just gives us reason to chant the holy name stronger and harder. Go out on Hari Nam and give people the holy name, give them prasadam.
Yeah, and Kali Yuga is the difficult age, but in Srimad Bhagavatam, the conclusion is it's the best age.
Yeah.
King Parikshit concluded that at the 12th canto, finally, at the end. That's the best age because it's the simplest method.
Yeah.
Quick.
So you have to meditate for...
But we don't want to.
Okay. All right, here we go. Text 21. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is all-powerful, and he awards the results of one's fruitive activities. Thus, although one living entity's duration of life is very small, whereas that of another is very great, he is always in his transcendental position, and there's no question of lessening or increasing his duration of life. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Both the mosquito and Lord Brahma are living entities in the material world. Both are minute sparks and are part of the Supreme Lord. The very short duration of life of the mosquito and the very long lifetime of Lord Brahma are both awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the results of their karma. But in the Brahma Samhita, we find it is said, Karmani nirdahati. The Lord diminishes or vanquishes the reactions of devotees. The same fact is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yagnartat karmano nat yatra. One should perform karma only for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, one is bound by the action and reaction of karma. Under the laws of karma, a living entity wanders within the universe under the rule of eternal time. And sometimes he becomes a mosquito and sometimes Lord Brahma. To a sane man, this business is not very fruitful. Bhagavad Gita 9:25 gives a warning to the living entities. Yanti deva vrata devan. Those who are addicted to the worship of the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, and those who are addicted to worship of the Pitas, forefathers, go to the Pitas. Those who are inclined to material activities remain in the material sphere. But persons who engage in devotional service reach the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where there is neither birth nor death, nor different varieties of life under the influence of the law of karma. The best interest of the living entity is to engage himself in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advised, my friend, you are being washed away in material nature's waves of time. Please try to understand that you are the eternal servant of the Lord. Then everything will stop and you will be eternally happy. Jai. Give us a good reason to smile.
Yeah, because I said in the beginning there that something about the karma will stop. You'll be relieved from karma, and it says that. I was reading. Sometimes we have things on the YouTube. They have those japa, Prabhupada chanting japa, and there's pictures and sometimes little quotes going by. And this one was talking about Srimati Radharani, how she's the compassion. When he expands the Srimati Radharani, compassion expands with her, and that I was thinking about that. Well, the deity worship's so important that way then, because it's been said that it's very difficult to approach Krishna, and Srimati Radharani's there. She controls Krishna, because he's expanded to enjoy, and so she's been in that expansion. She's that enjoyment principle, and she makes arrangements for Krishna to enjoy, and she brings all the living entities to enjoy with Krishna. So because of that compassion, it's an advantage to us to have deity worship. And but then there's Lord Chaitanya's there because that can very be easily mistaken. The sahajas, that kind of lila can be mistaken as mundane lust. And then Lord Chaitanya shows the proper way to approach that with gravity, serious, not whimsically. And then the Guru Parampara, we have Prabhupada, who can show us how to practically engage in service under his direction in certain ways that you achieve that same result of the residents of Vrindavan. Because Prabhupada says, if you just follow the four regulative principles, chant Hare Krishna, offer your food, and do this service, like reading the books, you'll go back to Godhead. So, you're not engaging in any leelas like in the... So it's very nice. It starts, though, with compassion with Srimati Radharani, and how I was thinking how advantage it is for the deity worship, that your karma's taken away, and then you're actually being invited in, instead of taking a lower birth your next life, you're advancing by that compassion. You're being drawn in. So this process it stops your karma, but that doesn't mean that means I'm going to get rich and enjoy in the material world. It means you're making progress spiritually. Anyway, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And while you were speaking, I was thinking how that compassion, Radha's compassion she's dedicated to serving Krishna. That's, it's Radha Krishna.
Yeah, that's all there is.
But she knows what pleases Krishna. And it pleases Krishna to bring others to Krishna. So the arrangements are there, and this, as you say, worshiping the deities is the compassion to help bring others to Krishna. So it makes perfect sense. I was really appreciating your reflections on these things, your sharing your...
Yeah, and I just remember, but it's tricky. Because, there's so many sahajas, they see it, parallel with, material loving affairs. But Lord Chaitanya, he shows it like, it's not like that at all, even though it has a reflection of that.
And the scripture that Lord Chaitanya especially is the Bhagavatam. So by starting Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way, by the time you get to Krishna, you're prepared. So you're not going to do the Sahaja thing, because you went through the creation of the universe, you went through the Vishnus, you went through...
Oh, right.
Yeah, you learn who God is.
Yeah.
Then you gradually go to the highest stage of realization by the end, yeah. That's right, it's amazing, like the first verse, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then it expands from that.
I was listening to this lecture with Srila Prabhupada, and he was upset at the fact that basically, if somebody sees a picture of Krishna, a lot of times what they see Radha and Krishna together. And so Prabhupada was saying that this is not good, that they see this picture and they take it as Radha and Krishna is ordinary people having a loving affair. And so he was saying that, Krishna is the Supreme Personality, the controller, and better that they, like in other words, that they should have a picture of Krishna in that that state, but that, again, people ordinarily, how he would say they make these things with the loving affairs, with the gopis, or
But anyway, we have to read Prabhupada's books. That's fine.
but that's it. It's like, as devotees, we can go through the beginning of Bhagavatam and really digest everything. And of course
It stops.
it stops.
Well,
But,
it fits in. They were talking about time and controlling things, and so you're just getting a little confirmation there.
It's probably giant under.
Okay, anyway, so
All right.
22.
Text 22. The differentiation among varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Others say it is due to nature, others due to time, others due to fate, and still others say that it is due to desire. Sounds like it's all. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. There are different types of philosophers. Mimamsakas, atheists, astronomers, sexualists, and so many other classifications of mental speculators. The real conclusion is that it is our work only that binds us within this material world in different varieties of life. How these varieties have sprung up is explained in the Vedas. It is due to the desire of the living entity. The living entity is not a dead stone. He has different varieties of desire, or kama. The Vedas say kama karshit. The living entities are originally parts of the Lord, like sparks of a fire. They have dropped to this material world, attracted by a desire to lord it over nature. That is a fact. Every living entity is trying to lord it over the material resources to the best of his ability. This kama, or desire, cannot be annihilated. There are some philosophers who say that if one gives up his desires, he again becomes liberated. But it is not at all possible to give up desire, because desire is a symptom of the living entity. If there were no desire, then the living entity would be a dead stone. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore advises that one turn his desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then desire becomes purified to serve the Supreme Personality. Then desire becomes purified. And when one's desires are purified, he becomes liberated from all material contamination. The conclusion is that the different philosophers' theories to explain the varieties of life and their pleasure and pain are all imperfect. The real explanation is that we are eternal servants of God, and that as soon as we forget this relationship, we are thrown into the material world, where we create our different activities and suffer or enjoy the result. We are drawn in this material world by desire, but the same desire must be purified and employed in the devotional service of the Lord. Then our disease of wandering in the universe under different forms and conditions will end. That's nice, yeah. It's real simple. We have to desire to serve Krishna without any selfish motive. Because our dharma is to serve him, not, so he's the controller. So we don't expect anything except that service. And then we get advancement.
Yeah, there's 9 forms: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, praying, making friends with, serving the lotus feet, carrying out the orders, and giving everything that you have, whatever it is.
Yeah, your heart is everything. And, that's what you say, when you're asking for the donation for the book.
When I was visiting my father, he was in a senior care center, and there was an old Jewish lady there. She was in a wheelchair. And, they can be quite characters. So I asked her, I said, I hear that the Jews are the chosen people. What does that mean? And she looked at me like I was really stupid. And she said, chosen to serve God. Dumb question.
That's the answer.
So then I said, well, what is that service? And she said, whatever he asks you to do. How perfect can that be, right?
Yeah.
Oy vey.
Yeah.
And you said Mazel Tov.
You didn't realize the answer you were going to get.
I was speechless. I mean, I should, yes, Guru Dev,
Yeah.
Don't be such a mashugana.
Wow.
So what was her service? You could ask her that. So what did he tell you to do?
I would have, but I was dumbfounded with the first two answers. I couldn't. Because it was so personal. Her conception of God was so personal. Serve him and whatever he asked you to do. It was so personal. I was kind of blown away. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that's a question to ask a lot of those old Jewish women in the nursing homes.
Yes.
Or the men.
And since you're talking to him, what's he look like?
Well, he has a big nose.
I'm going to go make him some chicken soup.
and some Google.
I thought she did pretty good. She got 2 strikes out of 2. She's on the right track because she's a recognized person. So I guess, we still have some time. So what, 23?
Yeah, go for it.
23. Okay, here we go.
You got a big one to chew on there.
Yeah, it's a big one. Okay, here we go. The absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He's the master of varieties of energies like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans or actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. Thank you.
Boy.
It's not hopeless. It's just mental speculation is hopeless. Prabhupada's purport. The question may be raised, quote, since there are so many varieties of philosophers theorizing in different ways, which of them is correct? End quote. The answer is that the absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to direct experience or mental speculation. The mental speculator may be called Dr. Frog. The story is, a frog in a 3-foot well wanted to calculate the length and breadth of the Atlantic Ocean on the basis of his knowledge of his own well. But it was an impossible task for Dr. Frog. A person may be a great academician, scholar, professor, but he cannot speculate and expect to understand the absolute truth, for his senses are limited. The cause of all causes, the absolute truth, can be known from the absolute truth himself, and not by our ascending process to reach him. When the sun is not visible at night, or when it's covered by a cloud in the day, it's not possible to uncover it, either by bodily or mental strength or by scientific instruments, although the sun is there in the sky. No one can say that he has discovered a torchlight so powerful that one goes on a roof, focuses the torchlight in the night sky, the sun will then be seen. There's no such torchlight, nor is it possible. The word of yakta, unmanifested, in this verse indicates that the absolute truth cannot be manifested by any strain of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. Transcendence is not a subject matter of direct experience. That's the senses. Transcendence is not the subject matter of direct experience. The absolute truth may be known in the same way as the sun, covered by a cloud or covered by night. For when the sun rises in the morning in its own way, then everyone can see the sun, everyone can see the world, and everyone can see himself. This understanding of self-realization is called Atma Tattva. Unless, however, one comes to this point of understanding Atma Tattva, one remains in the darkness in which he was born. Under the circumstances, no one can understand the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is equipped with varieties of energies as stated in the Vedic literature. Parasya Shaktir Vivadhaya Shrite. He is equipped with the energy of eternal time. Not only does he have material energy, which we see and experience, but he has also many reserve energies that he can manifest in due course of time when necessary. The material scientist can simply study the partial understanding of the varieties of energies. He can take up one of the energies and try to understand it with limited knowledge. Still, it is not possible to understand the absolute truth in full by dint of material science. No material scientist can foretell what is going to happen in the future. The Bhakti Yoga process, however, is completely different from so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. A devotee completely surrenders unto the Supreme, who reveals himself by his causeless mercy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, the Lord says, I give him intelligence. What is that intelligence? Yena mam upayanti te. The Lord gives one the intelligence to cross over the ocean of nescience and come back home, back to Godhead. In conclusion, cause of all causes, the absolute truth, the Supreme Brahman, cannot be understood by philosophical speculation, but he reveals himself to his devotee because the devotee fully surrenders unto his lotus feet. Bhagavad Gita is therefore to be accepted as a revealed scripture spoken by the Absolute Truth himself when he descended to this planet. If any intelligent man wants to know what God is, he should study this transcendental literature under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then it's very easy to understand Krishna as he is.
Yeah,
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
They have a bona fide spiritual master.
He doesn't just reveal himself to you. It's profound because he purifies your heart and he gives you pure love for him. So it's very ecstatic when he reveals himself to you, just like you're prepared to live a life of eternal life of bliss with him.
Because of his all attractive nature. He's all attractive. It's like you become like an iron filing to a magnet. You can't help it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very blissfully attained. And Krishna reveals himself.
Yeah.
You get a taste of it sometimes on book distribution because things happen that are impossible except that Krishna arranged it. That he wanted that soul to come back home, back to Godhead, and you're an instrument, and you're just standing there. You realize, wow, I'm saying things that Krishna is speaking through the heart, and you're going, oh, this is what it's beginning to the end. It's blissful, and you think, oh, this is the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, book distribution is really an express route. It's two rails. It's deity worship, and it's book distribution. It's two rails. They help each other. They support each other.
Yeah, I remember. I was standing in front of on 42nd Street by the library on Fifth Avenue, and it was a tough day, but people were. It was hot, and then some girl walks up and she says she's from like Montana or something, and she goes, "I've been looking for you. I need to get a lot of Prabhupada's books. The closest temple to me is Denver, and I hardly ever get to go." Now I go, "Oh, Krishna sent her here,"
Yeah.
So she got just about everything I had, a little whatever, and I said, "Hare Krishna," Dan gave her a card. I'm only going to be here for another day.
Yeah. Perfect situation.
Yeah. I remember thinking, it's like, yeah. I was thinking maybe I should be somewhere else. It's busier, maybe, And then she happened by, and I go, "Oh, Krishna, maybe."
And it's